My husband of decades is having an affair with a young woman. The woman was in her early 20s, and they had been together for more than a year, it seemed.
I'm asking you to divorce me, for her sake, and I'll even give you custody of the children. Just please let me be with her.
He even went to say that he gotten her pregnant. I told my daughters all about this terrible situation soon thereafter. After listening attentively, with solemn expressions on their faces, they fell silent for a few moments. But then, they started to whisper to each other briefly, and when they seemed to have come to a unanimous agreement, they proceeded to tell me about a certain plan to leave their treasonous father in misery. The plan was extremely intriguing, and I honestly felt a little horrified that my daughters had thought about this all on their own, but it was such a good one, and we all decided to set it into motion. And this is the story about what happened when we discovered that our man had betrayed us. Just you wait, dear husband of mine, for your happiness will come at a steep cost. My name is Jane, and I'm a 47-year-old office woman. I used to live with my husband, Levi, and 3 daughters. Carmen is in college, Harper is in her last year of high school, and Winona is in her 2nd year of middle school. And they have such a healthy relationship with each other. Our family friends always complimented us on how good it was. Not only between them, though, we were a very close family in general. Levi's job was in municipal architecture management, and mine was at headquarters for a new online communication software. Our jobs were very adamant on keeping the workplace comfortable, as well as giving their employees plenty of time to rest for maximum performance, and while we occasionally did work overtime, we were almost always together as a family on weekends. Since my daughters were born and I came back to work, I've put a lot of effort into my job, and I've even been promoted to section manager. Our daughters are getting older, and getting more focused with school, friends, and club activities, and we don't have as much time to talk together at home. But whenever we have a celebration, like this promotion of mine, we never fail to get together and have fun as a family. I don't mean to brag or anything, but I feel like we really are a genuinely close, happy family. And because our daughters haven't been at home as often as they used to, that meant Levi and I had more time to ourselves as husband and wife.
How about we take a little trip somewhere? Just the 2 of us.
That's a great idea. You know, come to think of it, we haven't taken a trip together in almost 20 years, have we? That's insane.
It really is. Well, time to put a stop to that little hiatus. Let's make a plan together. You make sure to discover some place you want to go to, and you tell me, okay?
Got it. The girls are all grown up now, and they've proven to us that they can take good care of themselves, even for a few days.
Holy shit, that's so true. We can leave the house in their charge for a few days, while we spend some quality time together. That sounds like an amazing idea.
I was so happy about this trip. I was happy not only because of the quality time we'd spent together as husband and wife for the first in nearly 2 decades, but it made me realize just how special I was to him, and how our time together meant something to him, even after all these years. We were a really close couple compared to most others, and back before we had our firstborn, Carmen, on our days off, we'd go to the grocery store, or take walks in the park, or sometimes just stay at home dancing as we watched a good movie with popcorn and muffins on the table. The time we spent together was so precious, and the fact that he suggested this trip made me realize that it was precious to him too. I went to the bookstore on my way home from work the next day and bought a book about where I wanted to go. I was excited to talk to him about the trip, so awaited his return really impatiently, but even after his usual time of coming home had long since passed, he didn't walk in through the door. I asked the girls if they'd heard anything from him, but they all unfortunately turned up without any good news. I still waited, but no matter how long I did, he never came home, and it wasn't until after the date had changed. "Welcome back, hon. Are you okay? You look a little pale. Was work a little hard on you today?"
Hey, darling, sorry I'm late. I feel fine, just pretty tired, I'll be honest.
I stayed up because I wanted to talk to you about the trip. I even bought a book today. Come on, you get comfortable while I get you a drink, and let's look at it together. I tried to be cheerful, but he wouldn't answer me at all. This behavior was completely unheard of when it came to Levi, and I was at a loss of what to do. But then, he would then proceed to say something that plunged my spirit into the deepest, darkest depths of despair. And that singular confession let all hell break loose on everything we'd built together as husband and wife.
I'm so sorry, Jane Kimball, but I'm having an affair with another woman.
What?
I'm so sorry. I know not one apology or 1,000 will be of any use when it comes to forgiveness, but I'm still so sorry about this.
He keeps on apologizing, but before I could even begin to reject his apology, I just could not accept the notion that he was cheating on me. You're lying, right? You're not serious, right? We were literally talking about going on a trip together, just the two of us, for the first time in 20 years, for crying out loud. We had 3 daughters together, and you came back home to us every single night.
I wish I could tell you I was lying. I wish I could tell you I wasn't serious. I wish that more than anything in the world right now, but it is the truth, Jane. I'm so sorry.
There's no damn way it's the truth. I don't believe you, and I'm never gonna believe you. Oh, wait. I see what's going on here. Were you diagnosed with something that's pretty serious? There are people in this world who lie to their families to let them go a lot more easier, aren't there? What was that tragic story about a wife who let herself get caught in an affair because she wanted her husband and her children to let her go without so much struggle? Stella Bacon, that was her name. Anyway, listen, even if you do have an illness, honey, I'm not giving up on you. None of us are. We're gonna support you, through, and should the time come to say goodbye, we'll do it the right way. I tried my hardest to come up with some cognitive dissonance. Any story, any lie, any fabrication of sort would suffice. I just didn't want to believe what Levi was telling was true.
I'm so sorry. The affair started about a year ago. The girl's from my job, and we both take paid leave from work to hang out together. As time went on, I found myself infatuated with this young girl. And although it pains me more than you could possibly imagine to tell you this in person, there's no way I can go back to you now. So please, divorce me.
And he thought he was feeling pain more than I could possibly imagine. I thought we were more than husband and wife. I thought we were best friends. And I thought we'd be together forever. The affair, the divorce, it was all just too much at once, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. Divorce? Levi, you're not making any sense. I have to ask you to use slow language and small words, okay? Perhaps he thought I'd just agree to it right away, because he looked pretty surprised. And then, for some reason, his tone turned a little aggressive.
You won't understand, Jane. I know you won't, even if I try to explain everything to you for the entire night. But I will try. In a nutshell, I now want to be with her more than I want to be with you.
And he told me everything. From how they initially met, to how the affair began, to how he eventually fell for her, and how he now wanted to divorce me. The woman's name was Tasha Owens, and she first started working for Levi's company as a temporary employee sent from a dispatch agency 2 years ago. Levi, who had been promoted a little after that time, was assigned to be her mentor. And as she confided in him with questions about work, the talking eventually snowballed into more personal topics, and the distance between them became very close very quickly. By the time his assignment as her mentor was about to come to an end, they went out to dinner together after she asked him, and since then, the relationship has been fairly strong throughout the last 13 months.
Since I met her, I was able to get that promotion I'd been hoping to get for quite a while, and other things in my life started to appear to get better. I'm sorry to say this to you, but I feel like we're destined for each other.
No way! Did he even see me sitting in front of him, staring at him in depressed shock? How could he just sit there, telling me everything as he kept a calm, straight face.
She's such a pure, sweet, innocent girl, and I genuinely want her to become mine to protect. I just can't let a girl like that go on to meet more people. People that could potentially render her life devoid of the chastity she possesses now.
But what about me? What about the girls? Haven't you been living your life and working hard to protect all of us? That's what you promised when you married me. And that's what you promised when each of our beautiful daughters were born, Levi.
You're paid more than I am, Jane, and you know it. I think you can live life without needing me again.
That's not true. That's just not true. All right. I admit it. Yes, I was promoted long before Levi was, and even after he did, I was still making more money than he was. But in this moment, none of that meant anything at all. Without my darling husband, I know I could have never gotten to where I now stand, and the same goes for the girls. I remember each moment when Carmen, Harper, and Winona told me how much they individually loved their dad so much. Speaking as one myself, a daughter's love for her father, who's kind, caring, funny, and protective, runs so deep it could transcend dimensions. To hear their own dad say such a thing created a void where my heart once beat proud and strong. I continued to resist, but then Levi went on to say something that spiraled the situation into something even worse. If I thought that his initial confession let all hell break loose, this one was infinitely worse.
And also, she's pregnant.
The words might as well have been bullets from an M16. My heart felt a surge of pain, as though it had been shot with those bullets. She's pregnant. What do you mean by that? Are you really having an affair? I was so consumed with all kinds of emotions, I couldn't think straight anymore.
I'll give you custody of the girls, Jane. Just please, let me protect her.
So he apparently had the audacity that I would be happy with all this if he gave me custody over the girls. That made me so angry. What the hell are you even... Do you hear yourself right now? Custody of the girls is a complete separate thing to talk about. And now, we're talking about your affair. I mean, what the actual hell? Do you really believe that a simple confession, a story, and then a favor to divorce you is going to let things go well for you? What the hell were the last 20 years all about, Levi?
I'm waiting for a new life to come into the world, Jane. And I can't be the one you look to for protection anymore.
All right. You know what? Fine. I'll talk it over with you, and with your darling, Tasha. Levi took his bag and left the house immediately after saying so, leaving me alone with my discombobulated mind and its swirling vortex of puzzled confusion. Needless to say, I couldn't sleep a wink that night. The next day, I went to the office, but didn't feel like working, and when I got home, I didn't feel like doing anything at all. The girls, bless their souls, were waiting for their dinner, so I eventually got worried about that and whipped up something simple without much energy at all. After we ate, the girls went back to their rooms. About 15 minutes later, as I just lay on the big couch, staring up at the ceiling, my mind as empty as outer space, the doorbell rang. I trudged to the front door and looked through the peephole. There stood Levi, his hands in his pockets, his face grim. Behind him, to the left, was a small woman with long hair and long limbs, undoubtedly his darling Tasha. I unlocked the door and told them to come inside. They obliged, and soon enough, as we were all sitting in the living room. Mrs. Kimball, I'm so sorry that it's come to this. This isn't a problem we can solve with you apologizing, Miss Owens. Nevertheless, I must offer my sincerest apologies. I knew Levi already had a family, and yet I had the audacity to do this. You sure have the moxie to go about and be with a man you knew already had a family who loved him dearly, Miss Owens. And now you hope to become the mother of his child? How dare you? My anger at the situation had already reached its limit, and I yelled at her. She hid her face amidst her hair and continuously bowed her head as she said rambled words of apology over and over again. Seeing this, Levi had the guts to aggressively retort.
Jane, she is pregnant. As an experienced mother yourself, you ought to show more compassion towards her. She's scared shitless with the notion that her parenting skills are terrible. You see? You're really not considerate enough to see this. Damn it.
Are you actually blaming me in this? You were the one who decided to cheat. If you'd simply restrained yourself, none of this would have happened. And maybe this girl would be having children when she was mentally ready. She's still so young, for crying out loud. I behold my husband glaring at me as he held his lover's hand.
Just agree to the divorce, Jane. I'm going to protect her with my life if necessary. I'm not going to let anyone stand in my way.
Oh, darling, I'm a horrible person. I'm causing you so much pain.
No, Tasha, no. Look at me. Listen to me. I'm the one who's to blame here. I'm the one that fell in love with you. But am I sure glad I did?
Wow. He really did just say that. All right then. Well, that was indeed the final straw. All my feelings for Levi blew away into that abyss, and I shook my head in disgust. Fine then. I'll agree to the divorce. I'll ask for alimony and I'll get custody of the kids. I'll also ask for child support, and you can come on over once more by yourself at a later date to discuss these matters. But this house will be left in our care, which means you will have to find a new place to live, right? Afraid not, Owens. This house was built by my parents when they found out I was getting married, and the house is still in my name. Indeed, the house we've been in for the past 20 years was paid for by my darling parents when I announced my engagement to them, out of all of my personal property. This house is what made me the most proud, because it gave me such wonderful memories of seeing my girls grow before my very eyes. Needless to say, I sure as hell wasn't going to give it to my husband. Tasha's face morphed into an expression of pure surprise for a brief moment, but perhaps she understood everything, because it disappeared, and she said nothing more. Smart girl. And then Levi took her by the hand and led her back to the front door. I sighed as I watched them leave the house. It was finally over. Or it would have been, if the girls hadn't come downstairs mere seconds after they left. I was sure they had just heard us, but I told them what had happened anyway. So, I guess you were listening, huh? I'm so sorry, girls. I didn't want to tell you this, but I'm sure you know already that your dad loves another woman now, and we filed for divorce. But I want you to know that whether you want to stay with me or go with him is entirely your decision, okay? It isn't my place to tell you to stay with me. You're all old enough to think for yourselves now. I buried my face in my hands as I said so. I heard Winona's voice. Of course we all want to stay with you, Mom. But this will only let Dad get away with everything he wanted. I think he didn't care about the house, or the marriage, or us in fact. He just wanted to break things off completely and be with that bitch he loves. I was about to scold Harper not to use that word in this house, but she was spot on. So I allowed it this once. The girls then went on to whisper something among themselves. A few moments went by, and then my eldest, Carmen, said, I think we should stay with Dad for a bit. I'm pretty sure they convinced we're going to stay with you, Mom, and they're going to enjoy the time they have together without any distractions. Well, my idea is that we, me, Harper, and Winona, become the distractions, and maybe something even more formidable. We need to let them know how much pain they caused us, and this plan is sure to drive them into a miserable life. She smirked ominously. I swear I saw a dark shadow pass across her face right at the instant she did. In truth, what she just said was horrifying, but I loved it. I honestly felt impressed. Levi probably knew that I would want alimony, and he accepted because he knew it wouldn't be much trouble to take care of. My girls offered to help me exact my revenge at their ex-father's betrayal, and after a few moments of thinking, I left them in charge of Operation Apocalypse. A few days passed, and he came over to our house to talk about the alimony and child support. The alimony was going to be demanded from him and the girl whom he was having an affair with. And when we got to talking about child support, our daughters showed up, with their suitcases, all packed up and ready to go. Needless to say, Levi was dumbfounded, and I had to struggle to keep a straight face. I'm sure he had already made a bunch of his plans with a sweetheart, thinking the girls would stay with me, and he sure as hell didn't seem to expect them to go with him. "We're going with you, Dad." And his surprise went 100-fold. I wasn't surprised in the slightest. Given his situation, anyone would have assumed the girls were staying with the one who wasn't causing the trouble in the family, in this case, me. Never in 1,000 years would anyone see this coming, and that also spelled doom for him, because then all of the plans he'd made for him and his sweetheart would be all for naught.
Girls, you do realize you're not going to get anything good out of going with me. You must know that your mother makes quite a bit more money than me. You can't expect anything close to a nice life if you come with me.
"We're not looking for luxury, Dad. We just want to be with our father is all."
No, listen.
"Don't you worry about money, Dad. We'll be getting the child support from Mom after all."
But I'm going to be home late all the time because I'm busy with work. That means you're going to have to be with your new mum. Surely you don't want your own mother to feel like you've abandoned her now, do you?
"And we're gonna have to get along, right? Well, that can't be helped. We promise we'll be good, and we'll become Tasha's new best friends." No matter how hard my ex-husband said to change their minds, the girls wouldn't back down, and eventually they got to the point where Levi just didn't have no as an option anymore.
Oh, what the hell? Fine. You guys can stay with me, but I expect a decent amount of child support to help me raise them, alright?
What are you on about, Levi? You're solely responsible for this particular crime, so I don't have an obligation to pay you anything, legally or personally. The girls left the house immediately as I said so, taking their father with them. And then our divorce was finalized. I got $3,000 from my husband as alimony and $2 million from his lover, and I sold the house we were living in, with my parents' permission, of course. And with the money I made from the sale, I bought a nice apartment downtown and moved into it completely a couple weeks thereafter. I made sure that each of my daughters would get their own room once they came back. When my daughters came back, I had a room and a bath in the condo. I bought a condo with the money from the sale of the house and my husband's alimony, and I moved into that condo so that when my daughters came back, each one would have a room to herself. The girls went on to live with their father and new stepmother and came to stay at my new place with me over the weekends. Levi now lived where his lover had been living, which was nothing more than a small apartment with one living room and one kitchen. In a nutshell, it was extremely cramped and uncomfortable for 5 people, 4 of whom were adults pretty much. But this was all part of Operation Apocalypse. What my girls all said in unison whenever they came back here was, "Oh, holy moly. This apartment is so much better than that goddamn hellhole. It's so small, it's so cramped, and it's literal garbage." Even Carmen, my eldest daughter, and the one who suggested Operation Apocalypse in the first place, was visibly struggling to keep it together when it came to talking about her dad's living quarters. I felt really bad when I saw them encouraging each other, telling each other that they just had to hold on a little bit longer, for them, and for me, their mother. I was so proud of them, and so thankful for them that they were willing to make a couple of sacrifices in order to achieve the greater good. A few months passed after the whole divorce situation blew over. Levi continued to live with his lover and with his daughters, and the girls themselves were pretty much at the end of their patience. But then, with uncanny timing, Levi and Tasha precipitated to my apartment, practically on their knees, begging for me to take the girls back.
Jane, you can't just sit there and do nothing about those selfish daughters of yours. They're causing us a lot of trouble, in case you didn't know.
Hey, watch it there, buddy. Those are also your little girls that you're talking about, since they wanted you to take custody over them.
Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Why the frick do you think we're here? Trust me when I say that I wouldn't even send you a postcard if the trouble they're causing is something that could be handled.
According to Levi, the trouble they're causing was mostly about the food Tasha was preparing for them. More specifically, they were always complaining about how it looked or tasted. Another thing was that even though he claimed they specifically requested that Tasha prepare lunchboxes for them, they always leave those behind. If you think that's bad enough already, well, prepare to cringe, because that was only the tip of the iceberg of chaos. If any one of the girls doesn't get what she wants, she started screaming, "Dad, stop! Ow, please!" in a voice loud enough that it would echo through the entire neighborhood.
And I didn't hear anything about paying their school fees, Jane. What's that all about?
What do you mean? I mean, of course you have to pay for their school. You have custody over them, of course. I have a one-bedroom apartment, Miss Kimball, and it's so cramped. I can't help but feel bad for the girls. That was just blatantly obvious. Like I said earlier, there were literally 5 people staying in an apartment barely big enough to house a single grizzly bear. Even the smallest of these people, my daughter Winona, was 15 years old and stood at a height of 5'6".
They're also a nuisance to the neighbours below us. What with the loud thumps of their footsteps. It's so bad the landlord literally called us and asked us to either get the girls another place to live or be evicted altogether. I'm begging you, Jane, take them back, please. Please.
He actually began to plead with me. I wouldn't have been surprised if he just got on his knees and bowed his head to the floor, what with the sheer purity of the desperation I could hear in his voice. But when did I ever say I gave a good goddamn about that? Like I said, they are your daughters, and they voluntarily asked to be taken under your custody. And there's legal paperwork that actually prohibits me from taking them back. Unless they change their minds, it looks like there's nothing I can do. And it's no use asking me to talk to them. I respect their decision as legal citizens of this city. You're gonna have to talk to them, considering you're their legal guardian now. I hope you put some sense into those selfish brains of theirs, because I do admit that what they're doing isn't exactly civilized at all.
You're evil. You're so evil. You're the actual devil, Jane. Have you no damn mercy?
Those words made my fury explode in a fiery outburst. How dare you frickin' say that? I refuse to be called the devil himself by someone who willingly abandoned his entire family, full of love and admiration for you, only for the love of a girl whose innocence you yourself spoiled with your infidelity. Conceiving a child with another woman when you already have 3 other children growing up is far more devilish than anything I could do to you combined.
That's beside the point. We already settled that. We're divorced now, and I paid the alimony in full just as we agreed. You have no right to bring that up again. Anyway, I repeat, take your daughters back, please.
He brushed my outburst aside and went on to plead with me to accept the girls back. I decided to take them back because I feel sorry for my daughters, who have to be taken in by a despicable man like this. You do realize this means you have to pay child support, right? $500 per child until they reach the age of 20.
Now wait a goddamn second, that's just not freaking fair, Jane.
That's just not possible, Miss Kimball. If you take that much money away from us, we won't be able to raise our child. Do you see me give a good goddamn about that? If you think you're gonna live your married life together in peace and harmony right after you destroyed a thriving family, I'm afraid you're gravely mistaken, Miss Tasha. We must never forget that nature isn't always fair to its subjects. Everything must face challenges every once in a while, especially those who deliberately decided to go against it. If you claim that paying the child support is going to make a life too hard for you, then I expect you to continue taking good care of my daughters henceforth. Those words hit a nerve, because when Levi began to panic, saying,
Alright. I'll freaking pay you child support, damn it. If it means getting the frick out my house, I'll pay whatever sum you demand.
And then my daughters came out of their rooms in my house, and Winona went on to say, Dad, you really do only think about yourself, don't you? I really feel terrible for that child that's growing in that woman's belly right now. We have a wonderful mother who loves us and would do literally anything for us, and we would do anything for her. But that child will only have a father who betrayed his family on purpose, and a mother who actively destroys the families of people around her. I really do feel sorry for the baby, and I only hope it grows up without being traumatized over the truth of its family. She spoke very quietly, and her eyes revealed a heart filled with the deepest form of scornful contempt. Perhaps that struck something that should never have been struck, because Tasha suddenly stood up and said, I don't care about this child anymore, Levi. You already have an astounding amount of alimony to this bitch, and now you have little money, if not none at all, and yet you're still willing to pay child support to her? We're already rock bottom with our savings, and all this means the little that we have also will be gone.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be how it is. But we'll just have to do our best and...
Levi was about to say something more, when Tasha interrupted him very rudely and exclaimed, You've got to be frickin' kidding me. I thought you were a man that had a lot of money, and that had a wonderful house, and that was literally the only reason why I was gonna lie about having a baby in order to get you to marry me. This bombshell came out of nowhere, and the temperature in the room dropped to absolute zero in less than a millisecond.
Wait, you lied? I don't understand. What do you mean by...
And then Tasha went on to explain everything. It seemed the bitch thought that her future would be very safe and stable if she claimed Levi as her own. Considering the fact that he was promoted to a higher position in the construction management company he worked for, and had a nice entourage of friends and colleagues who trusted him. The problem was how to get him to sway away from the family he already had, and the first answer that popped into that two-timing slime bag of a brain of hers was to lie to him about being pregnant with his child. And now that the affair was out of the Chamber of Secrets, he had to pay alimony and child support and all that money. Perhaps that led her to lose sight of the value she once saw in the man. I don't need you, you bastard! In a world where everything is all about money, you have absolutely nothing. And I have no use for a penniless hog that never had the guts to evict his problematic children from his home. She stormed to the door, yanked on her shoes, made her way to the elevator, and despite Levi's desperate pleas and yells to get her to stay with him, she got on the elevator and was never seen again. Levi had missed the elevator, and he collapsed to his knees in front of the doors and started sobbing. I never actually saw what happened after Tasha stormed out of the apartment. The girls and I were bamboozled over what we just witnessed, and none of us dared to move a muscle. I only assume that's what happened, based on what I could hear from the hallway. The room remained ice cold and motionless for an amount of time of only goodness knew. Levi's sobs echoed in the corridor, and then I began to hear footsteps accelerating back to the flat. Levi burst in through the door, slammed the door behind him, pounded it a couple of times, turned around to face us, and came running. He got down on all fours and started to beg for our forgiveness.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I was so wrong to leave you. Please, let this be nothing but a bad dream. I still love all of you with all my heart. Let's go back to our old amazing life as a whole family, Wouldn't you like that?
I was about to yell at him in response, but then Carmen stepped in. You're not our father anymore, and you are no longer Mom's husband. You came here to ask Mom to regain custody over us, and regain it she did. I'm not gonna live with a middle-aged man whom I don't know. Harper and Winona, together with Carmen, pounced onto Levi. They dragged him to his feet, grabbed his work bag, his coat, and his shoes, and threw them all into the corridor, along with Levi himself. They quickly shut the door and locked it. That was the last time they ever saw their father again. Since then, he'd call a few times, but I ignored them all. We were fully divorced by this point, and since my girls were here with me, we cut all ties with him. Then, it got out that Levi and Tasha were having an affair at the company, and while she was supposed to work until next month, her contract with the dispatch agency was terminated. As for Levi himself, he had to stay at the company, but word got out that he had an affair and divorced his wife, and perhaps that made things extremely difficult for him, because he kept on missing work without leave. As a result, he was fired a couple of weeks after this whole ridiculous incident. Levi now has a part-time day job, apparently, but he has to pay $1,500 a month in child support, so he's living in a shabby $300 apartment, eating nothing but PB&J sandwiches to stay alive. As for my family, with my daughters, we're all living so happily in the apartment. Recently, Carmen started bringing home her boyfriend, Blake, and she seems to be very happy with him, which was great news to me. Harper and Winona may leave the nest in the future, but until then, I promise to do everything I can to raise them responsibly. Wish me luck!